Please stay here. Fort Maddie, in honor of City. Home. Yeah, baby. Come on. I know. All right. Now, with that. Do we? All right. Looks like we do. Can you hear me now? You should be able to hear me now. I am showing a strong signal coming from my end. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? That's what happens when your cable goes out. So, someone call Tyler, an old man can for your tech issues. Freedom Thinker, thank you very much. That was funny. Hopefully you can hear me now. Do great in a silent movie. That's funny. Oh boy. Hopefully you guys can hear me now. I am showing signal now, finally on this end. Where to go? There it is. Can you hear me now? Let me slip down. There you go. All right. Everybody should be able to hear me now. Hopefully. Yes. All right. I got to tell Darren it's at my end. That's what happened when a USB-C cable goes bad. So we'll find out. Darren should hopefully join us shortly. I will shoot him a message. And fixed. All right. So, I'm glad everybody's back. Never left. I want to welcome George, Scary, Matty Man, Dave. What a great name, Dave. And Gary, Grandizer, good to see you. And no, I'd be probably horrible in a silent movie. Tyler would have probably very little to no idea. Jeremy, thank you for joining us over on Facebook. Appreciate that very, very much. So, it is good to be back. Hey, Mary, you missed all the technical difficulties. Today, soon as Darren joins me back, I just let him know it's on my end and it's fixed, that we're going to be talking about a few things, starting off with this week in Vikingsland. So with that, we're going to talk about Christian Darrisaw getting his 5th-year extension. Darren's going to ask, did we overpay for Dallas Turner? Because there's a lot of still blah, 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 blah about that. I don't think so, but we'll discuss it. We're also going to talk about the return specialist, Devin Harper from Mercer. Roy D. Mercer. And those that listen to the Dr. Demento show know who Roy D. Mercer is. There's Grandizer. I wouldn't doubt that. A Packers fan probably did. Who knows? And then we also found out this week that Mr. Wright, who wasn't dead on and as good as he was the previous year, last year, has some competition. A young kid named Seth Vernon, which is going to be interesting. They have 2 kickers now and 2 punters now and 1 long snapper. He's going to be busy. Then we're going to get into the discussion, which is the theme of the show. Is Kevin O'Connell actually a quarterbacks guru? We're going to go back through time from when KOC was at New England and played all the way forward, some of the teams he coached for, and what did the quarterbacks do under those particular teams? Did they improve? Darren, I don't think is so sure. I think there's a definite, but we'll find out as we go deep into that. And then we're going to look forward to what's happening in the near future for your Minnesota Vikings. That's right, because there is stuff happening in the near future. Good stuff. All next on Two Old Bloggers. Let's rock! Vikings First and SKOL presents This Week in Vikingsland with Darren and Dave, your 2 old bloggers. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that. The question about can we get any of the UDFAs or players, etc., on the show, we will try. I can't guarantee anything. Stephen, I hope your autumn is going well. And yes, Dalton, I do this every time. It's not fixed. I probably need to rebuild this show from scratch and have it come back up, but we'll find out why. But it is what it is, for the love of Pete. Yes, George, you should be able to hear me now. You should be able to hear me now. I'm showing I'm coming across at my end. But if not, I'm going to be a little bit perturbed. Where's Darren? Can't find Darren. He didn't get his computer restarted. If that's the case, I may have to go solo. All right. There you see the thumbnail for the show. Is Kevin O'Connell an actual QB guru? Thanks, Matty Man. I know I forgot to hit the unmute. Like I said, I've got to rebuild this show back from scratch, so it's working properly. Got one problem fixed, and the old one came back. So that is what it is. We're going to start off with theme 1. George, you may be having fun, but I've been frustrated. And I'm sure all of you being married, or most of you being married or having a girlfriend, know how that goes too. But mine is tech related, not that, thankfully. But it is what it is, and we move on from there. I'm going to slide this over real quick. Kill Darren's box for now, till Darren comes back, and we'll start out. We wanted to start off with this week in Vikingsland, as usual. Grandizer, it's a great way, especially in the off season, to get to know these players and have guests on. We will put out word to see if we can get some. We got to go through the Vikings public affairs people. So we'll go from there. Hey, SKOL Mafia, welcome to the show, my friend. Hopefully you're not up in a basket today. And we'll start with the first thing. Christian Darrisaw. Christian Darrisaw was given his 5th-year option, or the Vikings picked it up, saying he's going to get his option, and that gave him, I'm trying to remember how many millions of dollars it gives him this year. It's not too bad for a 5th year. He will go into next year he's going into his 4th year now. We picked up the 5th. Once going into the 5th, like Justin Jefferson, we'll work on that massive extension, and that massive extension won't be cheap. You don't get that for good left tackles. It just doesn't happen. Trying to keep up with things. There's wanted to get through what Darren had in his notes. This is not shocking that the Vikings picked up his 5th-year option. It wouldn't be shocking to anybody. That's when you've got a good left tackle, you keep them. So, yeah, thank you, Matty Man. I think it is around 16 mil, somewhere in there. Now, his next will be over that. It's probably going to be closer to 25, but that's just my guess. But he had a PFF grade last year of 82.4, which is good, right? Now, what Darren was saying, he was credited with giving up 6 sacks, which tied for 12th amongst tackles, or tied for 15th amongst tackles. Well, that may be the case, giving up 6 sacks. But his overall ranking at 82.4 was 7th amongst all tackles last year. 7th. And all of those were left tackles except for one right tackle in the top 10. He had an 85.3 grade, which was 3rd. 85.3 in pass blocking, which was 3rd amongst every tackle in the league. Now you say, well, Dave, yeah, he's pretty good. Well, there's a deal with that. He's in year 3. He's going into year 4. And as I've said, it takes 3 to 4 years for an offensive lineman to develop. Now, obviously, he's ahead of that schedule. He's developing. But he's not even close to his prime. Not at all. A prime for a left tackle is around 30. So, and he's already ranked 3rd in pass blocking, 7th overall. And he's only going into his 4th year? That's amazing. We haven't had a tackle that good in a long time. Half-ton Chevy said, did David Dixon make the Pro Bowl? Not that I remember. I don't think Carl Lee did, too. I do believe Carl Lee did, but I'm not sure. And they were very good. Dixon had a mean streak to him. God, he was fun to watch on the field. So, it's very, very interesting that people, are saying, first off, trade him. Why would you trade him? That blows my mind. I have no idea. There's no reason to. He is that good. They don't grow on trees. You want them in the building, and if you can keep them in the building, you get them in the building. Darren, you should hear me now.
I can.
And it was all at my end.
Stuff happens.
The USB-C cord that had been giving me problems, it tanked. I pulled it out, threw the new one in. Works great.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. We are into the show already. I hope you survived the basketball game today.
There was 2 of them. I survived them. There was 5 on the weekend, plus I ref some games. But I'm feeling great. Good exercise.
Today. What about tomorrow when you tighten up?
That's possible, yes. But nothing new there. Just work through it.
Mm-hmm. George is telling us it's Tequila Day. And I agree. Cinco de Mayo. Where we celebrate the Mexicans' army win over the French in 1862. It's an excuse to party, which is nothing wrong with.
Morning, Steve.
Most Canadians are good at that.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So we got into Christian Darrisaw, I guess.
Yes, we're under Christian Darrisaw. We just went through his grades. I did not get to the fact that in 2022 at a 90.3 grade. But we went through his grades and how he ranked 3rd last year in pass blocking and 7th overall out of the entire league in tackles and grades, even though he still had the 6 sacks. He is that good. And your notes were to the point that he's only a couple months older than Kyrie Jackson.
Yes. So going to be getting a second contract, and no surprise here of us picking up the 5th-year option. I think he's set to make 19 mil next year,
16 something like that.
But yeah, like for so many years, Dave, one of these moves, just like extending Jefferson or picking up the 5th on Justin Jefferson last year, really not a hard decision for the Vikings to make. And if, like, we remember Brian McKinney, who was not as good as Darrisaw is, I think, but he did solidify the left tackle position for us for a number of years. When he left, then we just couldn't seem to get it right. We tried Matt Khalil. He had a great rookie season, and then I think the knee injury really did it to him. And he just was never the same after that. And he didn't really like football either. I don't know. He didn't put in the work that I think maybe a lot of guys didn't have the can do and the effort that you wanted. And so he didn't work out, even though his first year was encouraging. And then they tried Riley Reef. Reef was okay, but not great. And then we drafted Darrisaw, and the only issue with Darrisaw is staying on the field, because he missed, I think, 5 games his rookie year. He's missed a couple each the past 2 years. Offensive line, though, that's a tough position, Dave. You're banging into big guys all the time. You get stepped on, you get rolled on, you get hit from spots that you don't expect to get hit, and it's a spot where you're lucky to get whether it's a guard, center, or tackle, you're lucky to get 17 full games out of them, because they just take such a beating. And with Darrisaw, it's been a variety of things: concussion his rookie year, then some other nicks along that. But really, when he's there, you don't have to worry about the left tackle, the blind side at all. And he's going to be in line for a big extension, well-deserved, I think. And that's going to happen next year. Right now, though, the Vikings have signaled he's a cornerstone for this offense, for this franchise, for this foreseeable future. And that's why we're picking up the 5th-year option. And I think that's good news. Now they can get to work on the bigger, longer deal after they deal with Justin Jefferson's.
Right. And which will probably happen next offseason. We'll be talking about it at this time. When are they going to announce that he's been extended, and for how much? $25 million per year, and everybody's going, how can we afford that? Oh, well, we can afford that because we've got a rookie quarterback. But it's a great position to lock down, especially when you have one of the best in the league, and he is considered one of the best, and he should grow further into it. As I was saying earlier, he's only going into his 4th season.
Yeah.
And as I said, it usually takes 3 to 4 years for an offensive lineman to develop to where they're functional in the NFL. He's way beyond that already. And so he's still going to develop after this. And the prime usually for a left tackle is 30 years old. It's one of those positions that plays till almost mid-30s.
That's right.
He still has a ton of good football ahead of him, as long as he stays healthy. And they're trying to work on those rules some more. I mean, you supposedly can't cut back block on him. That's a penalty. You've seen some of that. They don't want people going for their knees, and linemen hate that with a passion. You get some little guy go dive at your knees. It's frustrating. But he has lots and lots of promise ahead of him to be just literally the anchor for this team. And on that line, as I'm the left tackle and nobody gets by me type of sense.
Exactly. And as you were saying before, he's just like a smidge older than Kyrie Jackson. And at his age, again, going into his 4th season, there's still room for him to improve, to get better. And that is a great thought for Viking fans, probably a scary thought for offensive coordinator or defensive coordinators around the league who will be playing the Vikings a lot and trying to figure out how they're going to get to the quarterback, especially now that we probably are going to have a much more mobile one than we've had previously. And left tackle, you don't have to worry about it when Christian Darrisaw is playing there and he's healthy.
Right. And they figured out a way. I mean, we've got 2 good tackles.
Yeah.
And if the 2 good tackles are problems, go up to the middle. And hey, guess what? With certain good defensive lines, that actually worked. Holy shit.
Yeah.
To our detriment. But with a mobile quarterback, that should help. Well, that brings us to the next bit in this, what happened this week. And that is, you wanted to talk about Dallas Turner and supposedly paying too much.
Yeah, well, this has been a topic that's happened since the Turner trade was made, and again, the narrative, the stories coming out, particularly I think from the statistical analytics side of things, that the Vikings give up way too much in trading what they did to get Dallas Turner, and if you count the Houston trade and then the trade that we made with Jacksonville, I think it turns out that we didn't give away, but we traded away 7 draft picks to get Turner, including swapping out on a first rounder, and so the analytics nerds feel that the Vikings lost big on this trade, and we've talked about it before. And I think I understand their thinking there. They add up all the trades and try to come up with a value for all of those trades. It, according to the analytics side of things, and people have probably heard this before, but we gave up the equivalent of 2 mid-round firsts to trade up and get Dallas Turner. Bill Barnwell dug into this last week on ESPN, looking at various trades up outside of a quarterback, and was it necessary for him? One of his points was, if this trade, he acknowledged that the Vikings gave up a lot, but he also said that he could see it if you're a team, you see an impact guy at a position that you are weak at, and you think that you've got a really strong team, a Super Bowl contender, and you think this guy, if he's like a consistent all-pro guy, that he can put you over the top and get you to the Super Bowl. Well, Barnwell says the Vikings aren't at that point right now. Some of our fans might disagree, but I think that that's a fair take. And so it didn't make sense. Yes, he wasn't disputing that Dallas Turner is not a very promising player. He thinks that he's going to turn into a pretty good football player. But he also pointed out that when you trade that many draft picks and you're not a solid all-around football team with like a deep roster and lots of depth, that losing those 7 draft picks to get the one guy really eats into your depth. It hurts you in your ability to build that team that can withstand injuries. And if you've got a deep roster, of course, and the 1 or 2 key guys go out, you've got somebody to step in there and perform at a more than a reasonable basis. He doesn't think the Vikings are at that level. And again, I think that's a fair point. I still think that, though, this is a trade that, even though we gave up a lot of draft picks, and that it's something that can be a win for the Vikings as well as the Jaguars and the Texans too. And I think I point to the Stefon Diggs trade, I think, in that case, because when Buffalo got Stefon Diggs, they traded away 4 draft picks to the Vikings to get him. The Vikings turned that into, eventually, with the wheeling and dealing with Spielman, they ended up drafting 5 players out of that deal, and including one of them, Justin, the best wide receiver in the NFL, Jefferson, and this guy, a very solid young safety who just came off the best year as a pro. And I think that I feel good about Cam Bynum and the fact that I think he's going to be a solid player for us and going to continue to grow and get better. So the Bills gave up a lot of draft capital. We got an all-timer at wide receiver and a pretty good player beyond that. I think analytics would say that the Vikings won that trade. But I think if you're the Buffalo Bills, even knowing what you know now, Dave, would they still make that trade? I think they would, because Stefon Diggs. Yeah, Stefon Diggs was exactly the guy that they thought they were trading for. A number 1 wide receiver, somebody they could feed the ball to and throw 150 targets and he'd catch 100. And he was the number 1 guy, and he made their offense very, very dangerous. And they went to the playoffs every year he was there, a couple of AFC championships. I don't think that they're really sweating what they gave up, considering what Diggs did. And I think if Dallas Turner, yes, we gave up a lot of draft picks, but if Dallas Turner is what he's been advertised, if he's a guy who consistently hounds the quarterback, if he's a 10+ sack guy or more every year, if he's a guy who's an all-pro, one of the best at his position every year, and every scouting report that I've read about him says that is his potential. And if you look at what he did in college in Alabama, one of their best players, like, I feel there's a really good chance that he's going to be the player the Vikings think he is. And I think that even if he turns into that player, I think there's a good chance there is, even if some of the draft picks that we traded away to Jacksonville and Houston turn out to be pretty good players, maybe even a stud or 2 in there, I think that the Vikings will be fine with that. And I would be fine with it too. The cost was heavy, but what we got, I think, is pretty damn good as well.
Well, I was listening to Purple Daily's Access Vikings, and they had Tyler on. And they asked Tyler, why did you change your tune on Dallas Turner? Because he had Dallas Turner below Chop Robinson, and he still did. He thinks Chop Robbins Chop Robinson is the bee's knees, but he went and looked. He looked at a couple more different games, and he looked at it from a Vikings point of view, and in particular, how Brian Flores can implement him in this defense, because he has the ability to, if he's in pass coverage, to do very, very well there. He has the speed to catch guys from behind, and he has the chops to get across and beat offensive tackles. If he can turn his production, get refined some more. I mean, he's a rookie. All rookies are this way. You get a little bit more polish and grow. Danielle Hunter's first season was not spectacular, right? But you grow, and if you can turn into a 10-plus sack guy every year, hey, we're golden. And along with that pass coverage and such, in this technically a 4-3 system or 3-4 system, then we've got something. That's well worth whatever we traded for him, because that is a foundational piece on the defensive side, just like Christian Darrisaw is on the offensive side, right? And he's going to learn quick, because he's got to go against Darrisaw or O'Neal, and they're going to school him. They're going to school him quick. They're going to make him feel bad. They're going to hurt his feelings, and he's going to figure out real quick, oh boy, I need to step up my game and listen to the coaches so I can figure out how to beat these guys. And if he can beat them, he can beat anybody in the league. And that's what we hope to see when it comes to Dallas Turner. I think it's a great pick. And as when people squawk, well, we paid too much. Well, we had set up that pick to go for a quarterback, right? We fully intended on giving the number 11, the number 23, and next year's first for a quarterback if we could trade up. And everybody was like, okay, cool. We get Drake May that way. All right, yeah. Right? But we didn't. We didn't have to spend that number 23. And when the opportunity for a consensus top 10 player, a blue chip in the defense, falls into your range, you move up and you grab him. And it's not a waste. It was preparation. And yes, so you don't get any. You gave up a third and a fourth or whatever it was, swap for a fifth. And people want to say, yeah, but you can get some valuable players back then. Yeah, but you don't get blue chippers.
Yeah.
I have showed that draft graph on all the positions, and it screams down. Ski jumpers love it because it builds up speed, right? Yes, you can find guys in the later rounds. That does happen, but it's rare, and the percentage of that happening is less and less. This is more the sure thing, drafting high and getting the player than risking it, and saying, hey, let him go. We'll try to find somebody after the talent cliff went because Chop Robinson was gone. He was gone, right? Then you're doing you're hoping for a second level defensive end, if not a third level defensive end to fall into your lap. Hey, first level, top level of any position is a great thing to have. And you're going to pay a premium even in the draft to get it, unless you stink and you got that draft position by stinking. But that's basically paying a premium too, because you stunk. You want to be a good football team. So I don't think
sure
it's,
do.
David says the draft graph is not applicable to their Turner. I think it is. When you get first round defensive ends, it's one of the positions where a defensive end is not as predictive because they have I think a higher bust rate than most positions, but it's the higher you take it, the more odds on they're going to be good. It's just that starting point may be a little bit lower on the graph, but it goes from there and it goes down.
And there was almost 300 players drafted in this draft, and the Vikings, by doing what they did, they and the wheeling and dealing and whatever, they were able to get. I'm trying to put this the right way, but they had. Within 17 picks, they had two of those. Out of the 300, you got your pick. There was 17. There was still well over 280 guys that they could pick at that point. A lot better than if you save some of those and your 150 have already gone, including a lot of the blue chippers, and there's 150 left, but some of them aren't worth a damn.
All
right?
The blue chippers are gone. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and you're doing the Spielman thing, trying to own the 7th round, and you draft 15 guys and 5 make the team because you don't have positions for them. I think it was wise. Could you say it was a little bit expensive? Yes, but you were prepping the battle space for a different fight. You were prepping it for that quarterback. Now you made out on the quarterback, and then you said, hey, cool, well, I've got this little extra spend. I'm going to go get me another blue chipper. And that's exactly what he did. And that's what you want to do. The more of these top guys you have on the team, generally, the better you're going to be. Which moves us to, from the top end, to UDFAs, which for some reason, Kwesi and the Vikings have found some gems. They may have this year too. This time with Devron Harper.
Yes. When we talked about the UDFA class, Dave, we mentioned Gabe Murphy and then Dexter McLaughlin as 2 that I highlighted. And I also talked about how a little bit disappointed the Vikings didn't address wide receiver in the draft, because I think I'm still concerned about the number 3 wide receiver and how that's all going to shake out. And that we didn't even really do it in the undrafted rookie free agent haul. But and I also wondered, hey, we picked 2 wide receivers from Mercer University, not exactly a football power. They're an FCS school, I believe. Mm-hmm. But when I looked into it a little bit more, I did understand what Kwesi and the front office are doing in picking this guy, Devron Harper, because you look at him, it's pretty obvious, and even in the picture, he's not a big guy. He's only about 5'9", and 100 and listed at 170 pounds, I think. But the thing with Harper is that he might have a shot making this team on his special teams ability. I don't know if people have looked into this dude, but at Mercer in 3 years playing, and his wide receiving stats, particularly not last year, but the year before, were pretty fat too. But as a special teamer, he's returned 4 punts and kickoffs for touchdowns, taking them to the house in his 3 years at Mercer. 3 punt returns for touchdowns and 1 kickoff return. And special team returners are with the kickoff rules changing, I think are going to become, their value is going to increase again, like they used to be maybe 2 decades ago. With the changes, the thought is that with the kickoff coverage and teams, the blockers and the guys covering them being closer together, that they're going to try to angle kickoffs more, and that's going to require you to have 2 kickoff returners instead of 1, so they can catch the ball and have a chance at returning it. Well, the Vikings have 1 in Kenny Nwangwu, but who's be the other guy? Ty Chandler would definitely be a possibility, but and he can do it. But I think that if he's going to be your running back, number 2 running back, and be used a lot, the Vikings probably might not want him to be in that kind of a dangerous situation. So Devron Harper, if he's as good at kickoff returns as he reportedly is, he could be your number 2 guy there and a valuable piece there. Punt return is even more likely, because Brandon Powell right now is your wide receiver number 3, likely, unless Jalen Naylor beats him out, which I actually hope happens, but we'll see. I
do too, if Jalen Naylor can stay healthy enough to be.
That is the thing. That is the thing. But if Powell ends up Kevin O'Connell likes him. Wes Phillip really likes him. He's got a role on this team. I don't know how big it's going to be, but if he's your wide receiver number 3, if that ends up being how it shakes out, do you really want that guy who's basically a starter returning punts as well? I think the Vikings might want to lessen the load on him, save him, in which case Devron Harper, with 3 punt return touchdowns in his college career, which seems pretty good to me, he could be a guy that becomes the Vikings' main punt returner next year if he really shows something. So Devron Harper, not well known by me and probably most Viking fans, but with his special teams ability, and that's how some of these guys, a lot of these undrafted rookie free agents end up making NFL squads, is on special teams ability. He's a guy who could be your main punt returner next year, and maybe one of your 2 main kickoff returners too, and stick on the team, even though he's a guy none of us had really ever heard of.
Mm-hmm. He's a little small, but as long as he's fast and can return and has no fear, that can pay out. Now, he was on one Byron Lupkus show this week.
Oh, okay. That's awesome.
And he's a nice guy, nice young kid. Grew up a Vikings fan. He can't wait to stick it to Green Bay. He's living for it. That's just, he hates that team. Already, he's gotten the fans to love him. Those that have heard that story, and I just can't wait because he's one of us. Hey,
yeah.
You grew up a Vikings fan. You hate Green Bay. Come on down, baby. Now let's hope you can compete and win that starting job. And he says that's what he's going to try to do. That's how he's going to make the team, is to be a return specialist, be on a punts or kicks. And he's going to try to do that. And he's going to try to be one of the 2 specialists that, is kept just for basically special teams, because he is only 5'7", 5'8", 170 pounds. He's not an NFL wide receiver by any means. But if he can do that, by all means. And the other one, of course, is going to be Flash, who's going to be your number 1 gunner. So, and that's about as max as you can get for special teamers that are just special teamers, other than the 3 specialists that are on there. So I hope he makes it, because he's a nice kid, and his heart's in the right spot, and he wants to go out there and prove it. I can't wait to see him. So it's going to be fun.
Particularly on punt returns, we could use a little bit more explosive plays than we got last year from Powell, who is fine at the job, but he didn't break many big long punt returns last year. Now, maybe that was partly blocking, but maybe it's partly him too. And if we can upgrade on that, said it a few weeks ago about special teams, the Vikings offense, if it's not going to be the same offense as has been the past 4 or 5 seasons with Kirk Cousins, and maybe we're going to struggle maybe at times moving the ball, in which case your special teams and you're getting consistently good returns, positive returns from them, helps you out in the field position end of things, and helps your offense a little bit.
I can't wait. It's going to be good. Davey's talking about the marshmallow puffy covers that come out when we start on the field practices. Yes. And that now that is allowed. The NFL says if they want to wear them during games, they could do that. They do. Hopefully they make them at least the helmet color. And so it's not white like our practice ones, because they do look goofy.
They do. And now what's gonna be? Yeah, like what's it's gonna be real bad to have it. When you're used to like the football helmets with the the symbol, the team symbol on the side of them. That's how that's what it's all about, right? And not to be able to see that during a game would be.
Yeah, because both teams are wearing white.
Yes.
Puff deal now. Grandizer question: Kevin O'Connell, an actual QB guru or just another dog and pony and Dancing Bear show? We'll get to that here momentarily. Got a couple more items to hit. Next one. Mr. Wright has some competition.
Yes, the Vikings this week signed Seth Vernon to as a punter. We were wondering when that might happen because Wright, who's Wright had an excellent rookie season. Was like lots of hard. Like I think he only had one touchback as a rookie, which is awesome. Was one of the top guys in pinning opponents inside the 20 with his punts. Last year really regressed. Did not do as nearly as well on that. His net punting average went down quite a bit, and so he needs to be challenged, Dave. We shouldn't be settling for mediocre or just okay at any position, and that includes punter. And so getting Seth Vernon there, providing we've got an actual punting competition, and that is good. It'll light a fire under Wright's ass, I think. Get him wondering if he's going to have a job with this team. And I think competition is good at the NFL level. It's a tough business. I think it's going to push Wright to be the best that he can be, and we'll see what that leads to. And again, a small thing, but again, at every position, if you can get continuous improvement, a little bit better than what you had last year, then overall your team is obviously going to be a little bit stronger. And again, let's push these guys. Let's not let them get complacent with what they have. Let's not do the Greg Joseph thing and just settle for somebody who's okay for 3 seasons.
Yes, and let's do it. That brings us to themes 2.
Theme 2.
And here we go, Grandizer. A guru?
Yes. Well, I think for most of us who are Vikings fans lately, or Vikings fans, the narrative has been, one of the narratives for this team has been that the Minnesota Vikings right now are a great place for any quarterback to come to. And it's a great place for Sam Darnold to come to and J.J. McCarthy to come to. Great spot for them. Partly, maybe largely, that's because of the players that we have on offense. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, and then you got 2 of your left tackle, right tackle, Christian Darrisaw, and then Brian O'Neill, Aaron Jones, who we just signed as a running back number 1. All of those guys are very good, great players, and not many teams have that kind of talent at their skill positions on offense. So any quarterback who jumps into a situation like that with those players to work with, they're landing in a very good position, in a position that a lot of other NFL teams could not say they're as well stocked in. But the other part of it is about that narrative about why J.J. McCarthy has such a great spot is because Kevin O'Connell and the belief that with a quarterback himself, that he is a guy who can get the best out of any quarterback that he's working with. Considered a quarterback guru, if you were. And last week on our show, somebody, and I can't remember, and again, brought up by Grandizer already, I think, but last week we had the question, somebody I can't remember who it was, but they did say, Kevin O'Connell, quarterback guru, is there any evidence that this is the case? And we talked about it a little bit on the show, but I thought it was a great question, and I wanted to dive into it a little bit more. So here we are, going to do it. And so Kevin O'Connell, his coaching career in the NFL, it spans almost a decade now, with 5 NFL teams. He was a quarterback coach with the Cleveland Brownies in 2015. 2016, he was with the 49ers as a special projects guy. Then he's with the Washington Redskins. They were still Redskins back then. He was with them from like 2017 to 2019, either as a quarterback coach or an offensive passing coordinator, and then also as an offensive coordinator. Then he's spent 2 years with the Los Angeles Rams, 2020, 2021, as their offensive coordinator. Not calling plays, but still their offensive coordinator. And then, of course, since then, he's been the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, but calling plays and, we know, heavily involved in the offense and with the quarterbacks. So let's look at what he's been able to do with the quarterbacks that have been at his disposal during that time. 2015 with the Browns. Okay, the Browns were horrible that year. They went 3-13. But Josh McCown was the guy who started most of the games then. Now our quarterback coach, by the way. So, and McCown, during those 8 starts, he completed just over 64% of his passes. He threw for just over 2,000 yards, 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. That really, in a guy who had a journeyman career as a quarterback in the NFL and as a starter for a fair bit, that was actually, I think, better numbers than he did when he had a full-time starter. So in that case, with O'Connell being his quarterback coach, I think that's encouraging that he was able to get that kind of play out of Josh McCown, a journeyman guy on a terrible team. Now, he also had Johnny Manziel, who started 6 games last year and was horrible, but nobody could.
Is that O'Connell or is that Manziel?
Yeah, that's just it. Nobody could save Johnny Manziel. So I don't hold that against KOC at all. Not one bit.
And it's not that Manziel wasn't talented. It's that Manziel was a little bit too into himself or into other things.
Yes. Now, the 2016 year, Dave, can't really say much about what O'Connell's impact was on the 49ers quarterbacks that year, because I don't think as special projects, he wasn't solely focused on coaching the quarterbacks and the offense. So can't really glean much out of there. If you look at 2017, 2019, though, that was a tough time. He did have 1 year with Kirk Cousins. Now, the thing with that is Cousins, though, 1 year in 2017 that he worked with him, Cousins' completion percentage and his passing yardage went down considerably from the previous 2 years when he was Washington's unquestioned starter, while his TDs kind of stayed around the same level as did his interceptions. So I don't think there's any huge spike in Cousins' performance in his 1 year under O'Connell in Washington. And over the next 2 years on Jay Gruden's Washington staff, it was pretty messy for the team, the franchise, and its quarterbacks. And O'Connell worked with 6 different guys in those 2 years that started, guys that range from Alex Smith to Case Keenum to Colt McCoy and Dwayne Haskins, and none of them really played very well. And the Washington team wasn't a strong one. So the talented KOC had to work with was, I think, average at best. But those 2 years, I don't think, provide any real evidence that he unlocked unrealized potential from the QB room. Now, when you look at Los Angeles, his 2 years there, the first year he had Jared Goff. And again, Goff, though he threw, his completion percentage was pretty good. He threw for pretty decent yardage, but he had 20 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. Really, that was a little bit below what Goff had been put up the 2 previous years. And at the end of that year, Goff ended up getting traded to Detroit, and they got Matt Stafford. So again, O'Connell didn't really seem to bring out the best in Jared Goff either. Stafford gets there. He's got 1 year under O'Connell. Stafford threw his completion percentage was way up compared to the past few years with Detroit. He threw for 4,800 yards, 41 touchdowns, 17 interceptions, a lot of interceptions, but still those numbers, yardage, completion percentage, touchdowns, and the fact that the Rams won the Super Bowl, well, all of his counting stats, Stafford, were well above what he had gotten in Detroit, except for the 2010 season, that year when he threw for 5,000 yards and all that sort of stuff. But I think that in that case, the 1 year he's with Stafford, you could kind of say, yeah, there's evidence there that O'Connell was able to bring something new, something unrealized out of Stafford and got him to play his best ball that he'd probably ever played during that year. Now, and that was the year that gets Kevin O'Connell to be a head coach and to be the Vikings head coach, was that 2021 season with the Rams. In the past 2 years with the Vikings now, he gets Cousins back. And I think the stats wise, I think overall, not a whole lot of change in what Kirk Cousins was able to do. Completion percentage, touchdowns, passing yardage, all that sort of stuff. But there was other things that I felt that Cousins did do well under O'Connell and for the better that we didn't really see in previous years when he was in Minnesota. I think his pocket presence was a little better. He was stepping up into the pocket more. He wasn't having a brain lock when he got pressured, and he was making better throws. I think he also trusted his wide receivers more and trusted to allow Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen when he was here, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkins, and trusting them that even if they weren't completely open, that if you put the ball in just the right spot, those guys are going to come down with it and make big plays for us instead of playing it safe and checking down all the time when a guy wasn't 100% open. And those things I think were things that you didn't see from Kirk Cousins and before Kevin O'Connell got there. Now, and you've said it before, Dave, now that's a subjective take by me, but that's what I got out of watching Cousins play 2 years under Kevin O'Connell. And Cousins was playing, again, in some of his best, probably his best football I've ever seen him play with the Vikings before he got hurt last year in that last 3 or 4 games. So I think there is evidence there that O'Connell was able to get the best out of Kirk Cousins. And even after Cousins went down, the fact that he was able to get Josh Dobbs to look like a competent NFL quarterback for at least 2 games. And then Nick Mullins is slinging the ball over the place and throwing 400 plus yards. We couldn't beat the interceptions out of him and the brain fart decisions, but Mullins looked like a guy that can play, looked like he can play in the NFL if he could cut down on his mistakes. Right. So again, some more evidence there. I think that O'Connell was able to get the best out of those guys in short spurts. And so, I think is Kevin O'Connell a quarterback guru? I don't know if I'd be willing to say that. I think, but part of that is because there's a lot of things that go into whether a quarterback can be successful in the NFL. A lot of it has to do up here with what they've got to work with, and a large part of it is the team and the talent that you surround that guy with, along with their own talent. But even saying that, I feel that Kevin O'Connell, I like the plan he's got set up, particularly for J.J. McCarthy right now, like the check marks and that have to be the boxes that have to be checked. And he's saying he's not going to rush him into play. I feel good about the offensive infrastructure that he's built around and has ready for J.J. McCarthy or even Sam Darnold if he has to play a little bit. And so, I feel good about. I don't think it's a guarantee that J.J. McCarthy is going to be the quarterback of the future, but I feel that there's a better chance of him developing and being that guy under Kevin O'Connell than if Kevin O'Connell was not here. Does that make him a quarterback guru? I don't know, but I do feel that he's a good coach in this area, and that if he can't get the best out of J.J. McCarthy, it's probably J.J. McCarthy's fault, not Kevin O'Connell's fault.
Well, I don't disagree with you one little bit. Now, I would state that Goff seems to have played better since he was coached by Kevin O'Connell. Now, it happens to be in Detroit, but Goff's playing better and a little bit freer, right? He's taking those chances. He's got that matured sort of, it's a matured sense, I want to say. Tom Brady had it, obviously. Manning had it. But it's where where you can get away with throws, right? You can throw into that small box, and your wide receiver is going to catch it, type of thing. Whereas before, especially with Kirk Cousins, but were most of these quarterbacks, they would shy away from that. Now, did the stats change a whole lot? No. But I think some of the winning and the winning attitude changed. We had more confidence in Kirk Cousins last year, especially in those last couple games, than I had ever had in him. And everybody that's watched me for the last umpteen years knows how I feel about Kirk Cousins. He brought more out of Kirk than any other coach I've seen, right? Obviously, Zim didn't, but Zim's QB coaches and OCs didn't get that much. That's where I see him being able to develop. Now, I also see when it comes to J.J. McCarthy, I think, like they talked about before, they being Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell, that it's a marriage. I think these guys absolutely love each other. And JJ McCarthy was all giddy about this is the way I want to do it, all that sort of stuff. I think he's going to be more receptive, and I think it's going to succeed.
Well, yeah, seeing those videos of, again, they know they're being filmed and everything, but KOC, when JJ McCarthy enters the building and go, "My man," and they're having the big, maybe it's a little bit too much for me. Like, yeah, like a little bit, but that's the kind of guy Kevin O'Connell's shown he's been like that the whole 2+ years he's been. He's a player's coach. Like, he believes in building up players, not tearing them down, at least not tearing them down publicly. And I think that today's players, for the most part, they respond to that kind of stuff. They don't need a coach chewing on their ass like some of the old timers do. But there's still coaches like that, and some players still like that. It makes them mad. It gets them maybe more motivated. But I think overall in all workplaces, it's been proven that people like praise, and if they are recognized and praised, they will work harder for you than if you do it the other way.
Yes, for the most part. Now, there are some people that strive on being chewed out, but it's most like praise. Virtually all of them. Now, there's some good conversation going on. Too Evil talking and Davey and Raymond talking about Goff had a chip on his shoulder because he was moved. Yes, that's quite possible. But the stuff he learned, I think, helps. And they're talking about Favre being the last one, plays with emotion. Well, we see JJ McCarthy play with emotion. Now, granted, he does the whole woosah meditating thing to keep even keel while he plays, but he plays with emotion. And football is an emotional sport. Don't let anybody try to tell you different. It's always been that way. And,
if you aren't fired up and emotional when you're on an NFL field, you're going to get knocked into Tuesday.
But being able to keep control over that and learn that and not freak out about it, not vapor lock over it, is the key to success. And I think it's been so long, as Too Evil to Hope said, that we've had somebody like that I think this is going to help. Now, I wouldn't put down either Dobbs or Mullins when it comes to the emotional part. I think, especially Mullins, I think is a guy that absolutely loves it, but doesn't have the talent across the board to get it done. He's obviously got some. They both have some talent, but to get it done at the level it needs to be done. JJ McCarthy is the one that they've identified is that guy. And I think everything they have is going to go into him. Kevin O'Connell's going to dedicate his life here for the next couple of years to make this kid succeed. They're married together, literally. The front office, everybody. This is their choice. This is going to make or break their careers.
Yes.
And I think they're going to do everything absolutely possible to make it happen. And I think that's why this is so wonderful. And I think Kevin O'Connell can pull it out. And I think he set himself up to do it with a good quarterback coach, the reorganizing of the offensive staff so they can pay time. The whole idea of he's not going to start until he accomplishes these many blocks and to get qualified to start. I think they're doing well by this young man, and I can't wait to see it unfold.
And you won't have to wait too long, Dave.
Yep. And Aaron, you are correct. Some people say, well, he's not big enough. Everybody, including myself, likes the big 6'4" quarterback. He's 6'3". He's not a 6-footer that you're wondering if is exactly 6 feet. No, he's 6'3". So I can deal with that. That was damn good. Yes. And Aaron at a 4.0 GPA. And we've heard all the stories about him coming in and saying, hey, we're here for football. We're here to win type of deal and to be our best and not fail. I'm all for him. Let's do that. Now, on to theme 3, which Darren doesn't know.
I got an idea what it's about.
It's just going to be a quick shorty. Looking ahead.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to look ahead. What's on the near view of what's going to happen with the Vikings. First off, speaking of the marshmallow puffy hats, we have rookie mini camp starting Thursday, where they bring in all the rookies. They get together. They bring in all those undrafted free agents. They bring in some people that are there for tryouts.
Mm-hmm.
And they go through, I think it's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. They're going to have it. And they run them through the processes. The vets aren't there. There may be a select few, but the vets generally aren't there. And it's all the rookies, and they're going to go through, and they're going to do drills, and they're going to learn stuff, and they're going to do things. And it's the first time we're going to see Dallas Turner and J.J. McCarthy in shorts, but in a Vikings helmet and ready to rock and roll. So I can't wait for that. We're going to be watching, find out what happens, the stories that come out of there. Are there any stories you want to hear about at the end of this week, Darren?
Well, you're not going to glean very much, but there's going to be a lot of focus on Turner and McCarthy. But I also would, and we know that the beat writers are going to be reporting on whatever they can see from this and saying, so and so in shorts, stood out. So I'm really going to be looking for actually the guys. I'm going to be paying attention to certainly if there's reports that McCarthy sailed a lot of his throws. Well, I'm not going to be very thrilled about that, but I'm more going to be looking for, again, those kind of uncut gems. Some guys. Rodriguez, the defensive tackle, does what do they got to say about him? Or Juergens, the center. Not that you'll be able to learn very much, I think, from what they're going to be doing, particularly for those interior guys. But want to hear about Gabe Murphy. What's his get off look like there? Dexter McLaughlin, does it? How sticky is he on the receivers if he gets to cover them? So anybody that's standing out to me in these things is good for me and is interesting to me, because I've got lots of questions all over the Vikings depth chart about where guys fit, and and where are we going to get more depth at wide receiver, or at defensive line, or at inside linebacker. So going to be just really encouraged to see who stands out in the reports that we hear during rookie minicamp.
Mm-hmm. I can't wait.
And also, I don't think it'll happen, but again, paying attention to particularly what they say about McCarthy and how he looks, and how, what is there, does it seem like do his throws seem to have more zip than people expected? That
Yep. And we're going to find out. And of course, rookie mini camps are going to happen probably most of this week across the league. And we're going to hear stuff. Drake May couldn't do it, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's going to be fun to watch. I can't wait to get them in. We're going to get pictures of them. It's going to be fun, excited to see them. It's absolutely outstanding. Think it was Too Evil to Hope that posted up here? Yes, it was. It's the next thing we can expect this week is a schedule release. Thursday night, NFL. So that means Thursday day, we're going to and probably starting Wednesday, we're going to start to get leaks of when we're playing and where. We do have a London game this year. It's a home game for us. That's one of the 9 games from the home. And it's the AFC teams and not supposedly the Colts. So that tells me it's the Texans. Because it's from the AFC South that we're supposedly matching up against. We'll find out. Make sure if we play the Texans and win at Tottenham Stadium in London, it's going to be fun. Is there anything you're looking for in the schedule that you want to see?
Yeah, same thing every year, Dave, is just looking for those, like how the schedule is laid out, and what are the supposedly easy stretches and what are the hard stretches. Is there, last year it seemed like the Vikings, it all evens out, but I think part of the thing was we were playing only 8 home games and 9 road games last year, but it seemed like we had a whole bunch of we had a stretch where we were playing 2, sometimes 3 road games in a 4-game span. There was all the road games were stacked up pretty good against us, and the home games, it seemed like we get one and then we'd be away. We get one and then we'd be away for 2. We get one and then we'd be away for 2. Now the Vikings were horrible at home last year, so they played better on the road than at home. So I guess it wasn't such a big deal. But that's what I'm always watching is like what are going to be the tough stretches. It look like the tough stretches for the Vikings this year in a year where, and I think our schedule, I don't know, it looks like it could be somewhat difficult, and even maybe more so because of the quarterback.
It's actually per strength of schedule. It's in the top third of the most difficult, which is weird because we finished third in the division.
Yes.
Now, what I look for are the division games. I want to know when we play Chicago outside and when we play Green Bay outside.
Mm-hmm.
That's the ones I care about, because if they're both in December, that generally stinks. But we'll find out this year, because that's always one of the things we watch for. And wins our bye.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Last year we had a very early bye, so we'll see. I like the buys a little bit later in the season because maybe it gives your team a bit more of if they got some injuries, maybe it gives them a little bit more rest for the stretch run. But and the other thing I keep in mind when I'm looking at the schedule, Dave, is happens every year. What looks like a tough stretch sometimes doesn't end up being a tough stretch as the season happens because of injuries or a team didn't play as well as you thought they were going to play, and vice versa. What looks like an easy stretch, like last year, our first 5 games, we said the Vikings need to be 3-2 or 4-1, and they ended up going 1-4. Like when they were playing Tampa and some of these other teams that weren't supposed to be good but ended up. So you look at the schedule, you're basing it on what teams did last year in a lot of cases, and that what they did last year doesn't always translate into what they're going to do this year. So what you think might be an easy stretch doesn't turn out to be easy, and vice versa. So you keep that in mind, but still, it's good to know, again, the schedule. We know who we're playing, but we don't know when we're playing them. And in this case, we're going to find that out, and then we'll start predicting what's the Vikings record going to be based on how things stack up.
I'm sure that's going to be part of next week's show. Talk about the bye. They usually get a bye after the travel to London or Germany or wherever show. And, but last year was the first time they allowed teams to opt out of that, and the Vikings did. They didn't want to take it right then. We'll find out if that's going to be the case this year as well. Mary's leaving. Mary, you have a good night. Hope you have a great time watching everything that you're watching and supporting your family. All right. That brings us to the next thing that's going to happen in the near future that's going to be great and grand. The Justin Jefferson contract.
Yeah, we keep on hearing it might be imminent, or they're still working on it, and he still hasn't had the contract. But anyway, like I've said consistently, it'll happen. It's just a matter of when.
Well, from what I gather, it's basically done. They're just waiting on a time that he could be featured for the week.
Yes.
And so that leads me into, well, when will that week be? The next topic, or next portion of that. I looked at when the OTA schedules are. Obviously, we have rookie minicamp this week.
So Thursday. It ain't happening this week.
So it's not going to happen this week.
Yeah.
The next OTA is the 20th. So there's some gap in that space. Then we have one. It's Monday the 20th and Tuesday the 21st. Then we have it Thursday the 23rd. They take the 22nd off for some reason. Then we have it May 28th, May 29th. They take the Thursday off and have May 31st. Then we get into June. We have the mandatory minicamp June 4th through June 6th. And then another voluntary June 10th through June 13th. Those are your camp dates. And if you figure out where there's a gap in there, where there's no other NFL news, I think it's after this week. I think we get through the mini camp, and I think it's sometimes next week that if they want to make a big splash, that'll be it. And then he shows up to OTAs, on the 20th. Somewhere between now and then is when I'm guessing it's going to be, but we'll find out.
That makes sense, Dave. And if you're Justin Jefferson and his team, you're like, we've got the framework set in place for the contract. We've agreed to that. All we got to do is sign on the dotted line. Well, until you sign on the dotted line, you don't get those the cashola. So Justin Jefferson's camp would be like, okay, I know you want to give us like our time to shine, make it our week, but I'd like to sign this damn thing in case I get injured.
Well, and that's just it. Once he signs it, he can come to camp and not worry about injuries because it's covered.
Yeah.
He's got his guarantees at that point.
But if you're at his camp, you're like, when can we sign this damn thing? Like, the sooner the better, please. I know let's let the rookies have their shine, but right after that, let's get her done.
Let's do it. And I think that's what's going to happen. So now what else is happening this week is, sorry, this graphic sort of stunk. I threw it together at the last second. Tomorrow,
nothing you need to fix, Dave.
On the Real Forno Show, Tyler is going to be discussing when will JJ McCarthy be starting? When should he start? I've said for a couple weeks now, it's the fill the blocks. Once he's qualified, he should go in. Will that happen? Will that be week 1? Will that be, Thanksgiving? Does Darnold get hurt and he gets thrown in early? We don't know that, but that's what Tyler's going to talk about tomorrow night. And that's what we get to look forward to end this segment on Two Old Bloggers.
Yes.
And I hope you guys had a great show. Thank you so very much for putting up with the technical difficulties that we had that turned out to be all my fault and a bad USB-C cable. Appreciate that. Burned through it. And I will endeavor to get the roll-in fixed so we don't go to mute all the time. I'll do that this week, I promise. Any last words there, Darren?
Not at all, Dave. Just want everybody to know I'm on a championship team from this basketball tournament I played in this weekend.
Awesome. Well, good for you. And make sure you take a couple of aspirin, Tylenol, whatever, so that you're not as tight tomorrow morning.
Well, it occurs to me, Dave, that at 54, almost 55, I should not be chasing around people who are 30 and 20 and even the junior kids who are 16 and 18-year-olds, but I still do it. But the time is getting short for the competitive side of Darren Campbell.
I played a very physical brand of flag football until I was 43. And then it was just I can't put up with the youngsters anymore. It takes me too long to recover. I could play with them. That was no big deal. It's the recovery part that took longer and longer.
Yeah.
But now outstanding.
That's it. And thanks everybody for watching.
Grandizer, yes, liquor always helps me up. So even if you can't hear me, thanks you all. What do we say, Darren?
We say SKOL Vikings, baby.
SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and rate us on your favorite podcast aggregator. Darren and Dave, thank you for watching this episode of Two Old Bloggers. We look forward to seeing you on every show on the new Vikings First and SKOL. You can find our podcast as part of the Fans First Sports Network. Sports takes for the fan, from the fan. SKOL, everybody!